They say love has no age. But at 58, I had long packed away the notion that I might feel a man's warmth again, his gaze, his touch, his voice whispering my name like a secret. I thought that chapter of my life was over when my husband passed away 4 years ago. And yet, there I was, lying breathless on a yoga mat in a quiet studio, his hands supporting my back, his breath brushing against my cheek, and my heart pounding like I was 20 again. This is the story of how I, a 58-year-old widow named Emily, found myself falling hopelessly, dangerously, and undeniably in love with a man 23 years younger than me. It began with a simple yoga class, but it would change everything. Chapter 1: The First Touch. After my husband died, I moved to a quiet suburb just outside of Philadelphia. The silence of the house haunted me, echoing with memories I couldn't escape. One day, on a whim, I walked into a small yoga studio not far from home. It was called Serenity Flow, a place of calm, they promised. At first, I joined the group classes. But my stiff joints and aging body didn't move the way the younger women's did. I felt out of place, embarrassed even. The 20-somethings twisted into graceful shapes, while I struggled to balance or even breathe properly. That's when Kai approached me. He was the lead instructor, 35 years old, tall, calm, with the kind of body sculpted by years of quiet discipline. But it was his eyes that struck me most: warm, steady, unjudging. He smiled gently and said, "If you'd like, we could try a private session. I think it might be more comfortable for you, Emily." Something in his voice was so sincere, so kind, that I couldn't say no. We scheduled our first session for a quiet Thursday evening, after the studio had closed to the public. I remember the light outside was golden, the air slightly crisp. I wore a new yoga outfit I'd bought just for the occasion, simple, but flattering. I told myself it was to feel confident. I didn't admit to myself that I wanted to look nice. When I arrived, the studio was empty, serene. Just the two of us. "Let's begin with the mountain pose," Kai said softly. His voice was a soothing balm, flowing through the quiet space like music. As I tried to follow his instructions, I felt his hand on my back, firm but tender. "Straighten here," he murmured. My body reacted instantly. It had been so long since a man touched me with such gentleness. My breath caught in my throat. I hoped he wouldn't notice. But of course, he did. "Relax," he whispered, his hand sliding from my shoulder to my arm, warm and sure. I told myself it was all part of the instruction. It had to be. But then, as he guided me into a warrior pose, I lost my balance. He moved quickly, his arms around my waist, steadying me. That was the moment something shifted inside me. That was the moment I realized I had been touched. Not just my body, but my soul. The days until our next session passed like molasses, slow, thick, heavy with anticipation. I kept telling myself it was silly. He was just my instructor. A kind, respectful young man. I was imagining things, wasn't I? But when I saw him again the following week, something was different. His smile still carried the same gentleness. But now it lingered a moment longer. His eyes met mine and didn't turn away so quickly. My heart fluttered. "Today," he said, "I thought we could try something slightly more advanced, if you're comfortable." I nodded, trying not to show how nervous I was. Or excited. He guided me into a cobra pose, lying flat on my stomach, pressing my palms into the floor, arching upward. I was painfully aware of every curve of my body, every inch of exposed skin under my fitted top. As I settled into position, Kai knelt beside me, his voice lower than usual. "Your hips are raised too high. Let me help you adjust." His hand found my waist. It didn't move right away. Instead, it lingered, longer than it needed to. The warmth of his palm seared through the fabric of my clothes, awakening parts of me that had been asleep for years. "Good, just like that," he murmured. My breath trembled. I could feel the heat rising in my chest and cheeks. Then came his words, whispered almost reverently. "You have a beautiful line, Emily. A truly graceful figure." I froze. Surely he didn't mean me? At 58? I turned my face slightly, searching his eyes, waiting for a hint of teasing. But there was none. Only sincerity. I tried to laugh it off. "I'm much too old to hear things like that." He shook his head gently. That's not true. You're elegant and very beautiful. And then his hand, his warm, confident hand, traveled slowly from my waist down to the top of my thigh. Not rushed, not crude, just deliberate and devastating. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. Somewhere deep inside me, something bloomed, soft, aching, wild. My body had forgotten how it felt to be desired. But now it remembered. Breathe, he said, his lips close to my ear. And I did. But it wasn't the yoga pose making it difficult. It was him, his nearness, his touch, his voice. The session ended as usual, but I felt unsteady, not in my legs, but in my heart. When he smiled and waved goodbye, my stomach flipped like a schoolgirl's. Driving home, I found myself whispering aloud, "What am I doing?" But the truth was I couldn't wait to see him again. The third session came quickly. I was fidgety all day, changing outfits twice, before settling on the same top he'd complimented last time. When I arrived, he greeted me with the same warm smile. But his eyes searched mine more deeply. There was a silent tension between us, a question hanging in the air. We moved through the poses slowly. His hands were gentler, more deliberate, and the silence between instructions grew longer, heavier. During a child's pose, a folded position of complete vulnerability, I felt his fingers softly press into the muscles of my back. "You're very tense," he whispered. I nodded into the mat. "It's been a strange week. I think about you," he said suddenly. I lifted my head, startled. He was sitting beside me, his expression open, unguarded. "From the first time I saw you," he continued, "you carried yourself with such grace. I couldn't stop watching you. That's why I offered the private sessions." My heart stopped, then stuttered back to life in a wild, pounding rhythm. "I know the age difference is significant," he said, "but it doesn't matter to me. Not when I'm around you. You make me feel something I haven't felt in years." I sat up, slowly, unsure if I was dreaming. "I'm 58, Kai. You're 35. He reached for my hand, his voice firm but gentle. "I don't care. I'm drawn to who you are. Not just your age." I didn't answer. Couldn't. Instead, I stared at him, my thoughts a whirlwind. And then he kissed me. Softly, carefully, but with a need that melted every piece of resistance I had left. I didn't stop him. My arms found their way around his shoulders, as if they had always belonged there. When our lips parted, he whispered, "I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself." I shook my head, breathless. "Don't apologize. I wanted it too." After that kiss, I couldn't sleep. The taste of his lips lingered long after I'd returned home. His breath still warm against my cheek. My body, once a stranger to desire, was now alive. With it, burning softly beneath my skin. I kept replaying every moment. The way he'd looked at me. The way he'd touched me. And more than anything the way he made me feel. Not just attractive, not just feminine, but wanted. Deeply, wholly, madly wanted. When our next session arrived, I told myself we would return to normal. That it had been a moment of weakness. A passing fantasy. But the moment I stepped into the studio and saw him waiting there, I knew better. He approached me without a word, his eyes devouring me. I trembled under that gaze. Not from fear, but from anticipation. "I've missed you," he finally said, his voice low and raw. I nodded. My mouth couldn't form words. That day, we barely spoke. The movements were slow, sensual, more like a dance than a workout. His hands touched me more freely now, gliding over my shoulders, down my back, across my hips. At one point, as I bent forward in a deep stretch, I felt him behind me, his hands guiding my waist, adjusting me gently but firmly. His body was close, too close. I gasped softly as I felt the heat of him pressing against my lower back. He froze, but I didn't move away. Instead, I let my hands slide to the mat, letting my body surrender. He whispered, "Emily." The next moments were a blur of sensation. He turned me around gently, lifting my chin with a single finger. His lips met mine again, hungrier this time. My hands found their way under his shirt, marveling at the taut muscles beneath. When he lowered me onto the yoga mat, I didn't resist. The studio was dim, the air thick with heat and silence. His kisses trailed down my neck, pausing at my collarbone. I gasped when his mouth brushed against the curve of my breast through my top. My heart raced, my breath came in short, urgent bursts. This wasn't just attraction, it was a fire, slow and consuming. His hand slid under my waistband, his fingers brushing the soft skin of my lower belly. My entire body arched toward him. "Are you sure?" he whispered. I nodded. "I've never been more sure." What followed was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. There, on the mat where I had once struggled to simply balance, I now surrendered every part of myself, my fears, my shame, my loneliness. And he received all of it. Gently, passionately, completely. In that moment, I wasn't 58. I wasn't a widow. I was a woman, alive, adored, and overwhelmed by love. We became inseparable after that. Our private sessions turned into long walks, late-night calls, and evenings curled up on my couch, sipping tea and laughing like teenagers. I cooked for him. He kissed my